Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, ancient forest. The air is crisp, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. Sunlight filters through a dense canopy of leaves, painting shifting patterns on the ground. It's a scene of breathtaking beauty, a place where people go to escape, to reconnect with nature, to find peace. But for some, these tranquil landscapes become the setting for their final, inexplicable moments. They walk into the woods, often on well-marked trails, sometimes just a few feet from their families, and then they are gone. They vanish completely, as if the forest itself has swallowed them whole, leaving behind nothing but a chilling, profound silence, and a mystery that echoes through the trees for generations to come. These aren't just stories you hear around a campfire, they are real cases, documented and yet unexplained. A child playing near a campsite disappears in the blink of an eye. An experienced hiker equipped for any challenge vanishes from a popular trail. A seasoned hunter who knows the terrain like the back of his hand is never seen again. In these situations, logic seems to evaporate. Massive search and rescue operations are launched involving hundreds of volunteers, trained professionals, and advanced technology. They comb every inch of the area but find no tracks, no scent for the dogs to follow, no sign of a struggle. It's as if the person ceased to exist, erased from the world without a single trace left behind. The sheer number of these disappearances is staggering, yet they rarely make national headlines. They become local tragedies whispered about in small towns bordering our great national parks. The official explanations often settle on the usual suspects: animal attacks, unfortunate accidents, or people simply getting lost and succumbing to the elements. But when you start to look closer at the details of these cases, a different picture begins to emerge. The standard explanations start to feel thin, inadequate. They fail to account for the bizarre recurring elements that link these seemingly separate events into a deeply unsettling pattern, suggesting that something far stranger and more complex is at play in the wild places of our world. This is where our expedition begins, not into a lost city or a forgotten tomb, but into a mystery that hides in plain sight, in the parks and wilderness areas we think we know so well. We are venturing into the heart of the missing 411 phenomenon, a collection of cases so strange they challenge our understanding of what is possible. We will look at the facts, the patterns, and the chilling similarities that connect these disappearances across decades and continents. The goal is not just to recount tales of the lost, but to ask a crucial question: what is really happening to these people? Is it merely bad luck and the unforgiving nature of the wild, or is there something else out there, hiding in the shadows, waiting? Every great mystery needs a dedicated investigator, and for the missing 411 cases, that person is David Paulides. A former police detective with a 20-year career in law enforcement, Paulides wasn't looking for this mystery. It found him. His journey began when two off-duty park rangers approached him with a disturbing story. They were concerned about the number of people who were vanishing from national parks under highly unusual circumstances, and they felt that the official investigations were either incompetent or, more troublingly, intentionally incomplete. They believed something was being covered up, and they needed someone with Paulides' investigative skills to look into it. His initial skepticism soon gave way to obsession, as he began to uncover the truth for himself. Using the Freedom of Information Act, Paulides started requesting case files from the National Park Service and other agencies. What he found was shocking. There were thousands of cases, far more than anyone had publicly acknowledged. As he meticulously sifted through reports, he began to connect the dots, identifying a series of strange and recurring profile points that were present in many of the disappearances. These weren't random accidents. The cases shared specific, bizarre details that defied conventional explanation. He realized he had stumbled upon a silent epidemic of disappearances, all sharing a similar eerie signature. The patterns were too consistent to be a coincidence, pointing toward an unknown and unsettling phenomenon. Paulides identified several key clusters where these disappearances occurred with alarming frequency. Yosemite National Park, for example, is a major hotspot. So are Crater Lake National Park and the Great Smoky Mountains. These aren't just random locations, they are specific geographical zones where people seem to vanish under the same strange conditions over and over again. The clusters often appear near granite boulder fields, bodies of water, or berry patches. He also noticed that many of the victims have German ancestry or names, a detail so specific and strange it adds another layer of complexity to the puzzle. The patterns were undeniable, creating a map of fear across the American wilderness. The work of David Paulides has brought this issue out of the shadows and into the public consciousness. He compiled his findings into the Missing 411 book series, laying out the raw data and case details for the world to see. He doesn't offer a single, definitive answer because frankly there isn't one. Instead, he presents the facts as they are, highlighting the high strangeness and the official silence surrounding these cases. He challenges the reader and the authorities to look at the evidence without prejudice. His work has transformed isolated tragedies into a cohesive, terrifying phenomenon, forcing us all to confront the chilling possibility that our national parks are home to a mystery that no one is prepared to solve. When you dive into the specific case files, the mystery deepens, and the unsettling details begin to pile up. One of the most common and baffling elements is the complete failure of search dogs. In case after case, highly trained search and rescue canines, capable of tracking a scent for miles over difficult terrain, will be brought to the point where the person was last seen, and they simply stop. They refuse to track, circling in confusion or sitting down, unable to pick up any scent at all. It's as if the person vanished into thin air, leaving no olfactory trail behind. This is highly unusual and suggests that whatever happened to these individuals, it was not a typical case of someone wandering off the path. Then there is the strange matter of clothing. In numerous cases, the victims are found deceased, but their clothing, such as shoes, socks, or even pants, is missing. In other instances, articles of clothing are discovered miles away from the body, neatly folded and placed in a conspicuous spot, as if left as a clue. Consider the case of Jared Adadero, a 3-year-old who disappeared on a hiking trail in Colorado in 1999. 3 years later, his clothes were found on a mountainside, 500 feet above the trail, far from where he was last seen. His shoes and fleece pullover were discovered, but his body was not found nearby. Why would a lost child remove his warm clothes and shoes in a cold, high-altitude environment? It defies all survival instincts and logical reasoning. The locations where victims are found are often just as perplexing, especially when it involves children. Toddlers who have been missing for days are sometimes found alive, miles away from where they disappeared, in areas that search teams had already covered multiple times. They are often discovered in treacherous terrain that would have been impossible for a small child to navigate alone, such as across creeks, up steep mountainsides, or through dense thickets of thorns. The case of 2-year-old Keith Parkins, who vanished in Oregon, is a prime example. He was found alive 12 miles away, a staggering distance for a toddler to travel, lying face down in the mud. How do these children survive for days without food or water and travel such incredible distances? Perhaps most haunting are the stories from the few who are found alive and can remember something. Some report experiencing missing time, where hours or even days have passed in what felt like minutes. Others speak of hearing strange voices calling their names, or of being led away by a figure they mistook for a familiar person. Survivors are often found in a state of confusion, dehydration, and sometimes with a strange, passive demeanor, unable to explain what happened to them. These bizarre details, the failed dog searches, the folded clothes, the impossible locations, and the eerie survivor testimonies, are the core of the Missing 411 enigma. They push the boundaries of our understanding and suggest that the simple answers are simply not good enough. One of the most frustrating and honestly suspicious aspects of the Missing 411 phenomenon is the official response, or really, the lack of one. When David Paulides first began his investigation, he naturally assumed that an official list of people who had gone missing in national parks would be readily available. He was wrong. The National Park Service, the very agency responsible for overseeing these vast territories, claims it does not maintain a comprehensive, centralized database of missing persons. This is, well, a pretty shocking admission. For an organization that manages 85 million acres of land visited by hundreds of millions of people each year, the absence of such a critical record-keeping system is not just negligent, it's deeply suspicious. I mean, how can you address a problem if you refuse to even track it? This lack of transparency extends to requests for information too. When researchers or family members of the missing try to obtain case files through the Freedom of Information Act, they're often met with resistance, delays, and honestly, exorbitant fees. Paulides himself has documented being quoted tens of thousands, and in one case over $1 million, just to access public records. The agencies often cite privacy concerns or ongoing investigations, even for cases that have been cold for decades. This behavior creates a pretty formidable wall of silence, preventing a full and open investigation into the scope of the problem. It raises a serious question. Is the government hiding its own incompetence, or is it deliberately concealing a truth it believes the public cannot handle? The refusal to compile and release data makes it nearly impossible to understand the true scale of these disappearances. Without a centralized list, patterns can't be officially confirmed, hotspots can't be formally identified, and preventative measures can't be effectively implemented. It leaves the public in the dark, unaware of potential dangers that go way beyond just falling off a cliff or running into a bear. The official stance seems to be that each case is an isolated incident, a tragic but unremarkable accident. This narrative conveniently ignores the mountain of evidence pointing to recurring high strangeness factors that link these cases together. The silence feels less like bureaucratic oversight and more like a concerted effort to control the narrative. This official stonewalling has forced investigators like Paulides to become detectives in their own right, piecing together the puzzle one expensive Freedom of Information Act request and one newspaper archive at a time. The work is slow and arduous, and honestly, it shouldn't have to be this way. In any other context, a series of disappearances with such similar bizarre characteristics would trigger a major federal investigation. Yet, when it happens in our national parks, there's a strange lack of curiosity from the very top. This official apathy is perhaps the most compelling piece of evidence that something is wrong. The silence from the authorities is deafening, and it forces us to wonder what they know that we don't. When conventional explanations fail, the human mind, naturally turns to the unconventional. The sheer strangeness of the missing 411 cases has given rise to a host of theories that venture into the realms of high strangeness and even theoretical science. One prominent idea is the existence of portals or dimensional doorways. According to this theory, certain locations in the wilderness may act as gateways to other places, or maybe even other realities. These portals could be intermittent, opening and closing at random, or triggered by specific environmental conditions. A person could unknowingly step through one of these doorways and find themselves instantly transported miles away, or worse, trapped in a place from which there is no return. This could explain how people vanish without a trace and reappear in impossible locations. Another fascinating theory revolves around magnetic anomalies and infrasound. Some researchers suggest that certain geographic areas, especially those with large granite deposits, can generate powerful, localized magnetic fields or low-frequency sound waves that are inaudible to the human ear. Infrasound has been shown in laboratory settings to cause feelings of unease, fear, confusion, and even visual and auditory hallucinations. If a hiker were to wander into a pocket of intense infrasound, they could become disoriented, paranoid, and begin to act irrationally, maybe even shedding their clothes and running in a panic into even more dangerous territory. These natural phenomena could scramble a person's perceptions and lead them to their doom without any outside intervention. Of course, we can't ignore the theories that draw from folklore and cryptozoology. For centuries, native traditions have spoken of powerful, non-human entities that inhabit the wild. Legends of creatures like the Wendigo or shapeshifters describe beings that can lure people deep into the woods, often by mimicking the voices of loved ones. Many of the missing 411 clusters are located in or near areas considered sacred or taboo by indigenous peoples. Could these ancient stories be more than just myths? Could they be cultural memories of real encounters with something that resides in the deepest parts of the forest? The theory that unknown creatures are responsible for some of these disappearances is a chilling one, but it actually aligns with some of the stranger aspects of the cases. Skeptics are quick to dismiss these ideas as fantasy, attributing the disappearances to the so-called feral human phenomenon, where people suffering from hypothermia or mental breaks act in bizarre ways. While this can certainly explain some cases, it doesn't account for the whole picture. It doesn't explain the failure of search dogs, the clustering of cases in specific hotspots, or the sheer number of experienced outdoorsmen who vanish under these conditions. The truth is likely a complex tapestry woven from many different threads. Maybe some cases are accidents, while others are the result of rare natural phenomena, and a few, just maybe, are caused by something else entirely, something unknown that shares the wilderness with us. The deeper we travel into this mystery, the clearer it becomes that we're dealing with more than just a series of unfortunate accidents. The cases of Dennis Martin and the Cowden family serve as haunting reminders of this. Dennis, a 6-year-old boy, vanished in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in 1969 during a Father's Day outing. He was playing a simple game of hide-and-seek with his brother and other children, and in the few moments he was out of sight, he disappeared. An enormous search effort, honestly one of the largest in the park's history, found nothing. A key witness later reported hearing an enormous, sickening scream and seeing a bear-like figure carrying something on its shoulder into the woods. The case remains unsolved, a permanent scar on the park's history. The Cowden family disappearance is even more sinister. In 1974, the family of 4 went camping in Oregon's Siskiyou Mountains and never returned. Their campsite was found intact, but the family was gone. 11 months later, their bodies were discovered in a remote cave 7 miles away, a detail that raises immediate questions about how they all ended up there. The evidence suggested a crime had been committed, but the circumstances were bizarre and honestly defied a simple explanation. Like so many others, their case fits the disturbing profile. A disappearance in a wilderness area, a delayed discovery in a strange location, and a lingering sense of high strangeness that leaves investigators and family members with more questions than answers. The patterns are just too strong to ignore. The disappearances cluster in specific geographic locations, often near water, boulder fields, or sites with historical UFO activity and sacred native legends. The victims often fit a specific profile, including the very young, the elderly, the exceptionally fit, and those with physical or mental disabilities. This isn't random. It suggests a selection process, though the criteria and the selector remain horrifyingly unknown. The official silence and the difficulty in obtaining records only fuel the speculation that something is being deliberately withheld from public knowledge. Are authorities trying to prevent mass panic? Or are they covering up something they cannot explain or control? We are left standing at the edge of the woods, staring into the shadows, with a profound sense of unease. The forest is not empty. It holds secrets that are ancient, powerful, and perhaps not meant for us to understand. The evidence presented by the missing 411 cases challenges our comfortable reality, suggesting that the world is far more mysterious and dangerous than we believe. The silence from our own government on this issue is perhaps the most terrifying clue of all. So the next time you stand at a trailhead, ready for an adventure, pause for a moment and listen to the whispers in the trees. Ask yourself, is it just the wind, or is something more hiding out there just beyond the veil of what we can see?